can go live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to 24-hour Bible study, John Maxwell Bible Leader Bubble Training. And we are currently in Corinthians. And I believe that we will probably be finishing 1 Corinthians today. We're at 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and we should actually make it to the end. I'm going to do a quick review from the beginning so that people can get an understanding of what Corinthians leaders must take risks and overcome fears. The two books to the Corinthian church team teach us much about leadership. Various scholars agree that Paul actually wrote 4 letters to Corinth. Our Bibles have letters 2 and 4. While Paul appointed leaders for this church, he also led this body through his letters. He provided wise direction and needed confrontation without ignoring their need for ministry to the heart. The city of Corinth became a strategic center for Paul and even influenced his missionary endeavors in order to impact this key wealthy commercial port. He planted the church with the help of Aquila and Priscilla. 1 Corinthians teaches us that leaders must take risks and overcome fear. By definition, leaders initiate. They take risks. Paul stood for his convictions even when he stood alone. He confronted sin without help from others. He attempted new methods and strategies no one else was using. When rejected in his attempt to preach Christ in the synagogue, he began to equip others in the house of Titus Justus, right next door. Imagine the fear that he had to deal with. He taught right next to where the Jewish religious leaders could arrest him. The Lord appeared to him in a vision and encouraged him to not be afraid and to continue teaching, for God had many people in this city. Second, we learn that the best leaders invest time in building other leaders. While in Corinth, Paul started one of the first underground seminaries. So far as we can tell, he taught leaders in the afternoon when they were on a siesta from their workplace, just as he did in Ephesus. Most would go home to rest each afternoon, but Paul equipped leaders willing to give up their personal time to gain some tools to plant a church or evangelize the lost. Third, leaders must be both tough and tender. Paul waded through several difficult issues in the Corinthian letters, beautifully balancing love and discipline. He was called a velvet-covered brick. In the end, his gentle wisdom helped resolve the sticky issues. And so the lessons in leadership that we've been looking at and working with, leaders must find their identity in Christ, not in people. Confrontation and criticism go with the leader's territory. Corporate purity and security result when a leader courageously deals with problems. Good leaders create a unified corporate atmosphere. Effective leaders find a place for every member to serve effectively. And it is a leader's job to keep the main thing the main thing. So we shared about Paul being the velvet-covered brick, the 101st principle, the glory factor, the law of process, the law of picture. Confrontation results in purity and security. And now we're at the point of sacrifice. And what Paul had to give up. He gave up marriage. He gave up lots of things. So remember, leaders must learn from the past. And we spoke a little bit about this last week. Paul reminds us of Israel's patriarchs, whose disobedience forced them to wander through the wilderness for 40 years. The first generation had the opportunity to enter the promised land, but never made it. These things were recorded as examples for us. we are to remain teachable and learn from the past. And inside of this, believers have freedom. And sometimes too much freedom gets us into trouble. So one of the things in the last verse of chapter 10, he says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Do not cause anyone to stumble, whether Jews, Greeks, or the church of God. Even as I try to please everyone in every way, Paul says, for I am not seeking my own good, but the good of many, so that they may be saved. And as he starts off chapter 11 with, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. And we often look to the decision-making in gray areas. What do you do if there's a gray area? How do you then decide? So Paul at the, as he ends with that, the believer's freedom, leaders regularly face choices that affect not only their lives, but many other lives. What's more, many of these decisions have no clear answer. They do not appear black and white, but gray. So how does a leader make good decisions in the gray areas? So Paul describes a system for making tough decisions, and he has 3 points to it. The first, he prioritizes God's people. Put others first. The term others describes a person unlike you, one with whom you are likely to disagree. Leaders must choose what is best for others, not what appeals to their own tastes. Ask yourself, who will benefit most from this decision, me or others? Secondly, pursue God's glory. Does the decision glorify God or someone else? Paul would agree with the Shorter Catechism. The chief end of man is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. Ask yourself, does this decision give people a better picture of who God is? And thirdly and last, perceive God's purpose. The ultimate purpose for our being on earth is to bring others to Christ. We must always move toward fulfilling this mission. Ask yourself, will this decision please God and fulfill his purposes? Decision-making in the gray areas. So we can really see, what's being said so far, leaders learning from the past, this decision-making in the gray areas. This is modern day problems. This is modern day opportunities being described about. It hasn't changed in thousands of years. So then we go into team building and spiritual gifts, unity and diversity in the body, right before we jump into love. Team building leaders, they are leaders and they're brokers of gifts. Leaders aren't supposed to do all the work of the church, but are to effectively broker the talent on their team. Good teams use every gift and enjoy both unity and diversity. Consider Paul's philosophy of team building. So he had 10 philosophies. Number 1, the team possesses a variety of gifts or positions, but pursues the same goal and God. So think about that. That gives us a wide variety to pick from to join our team for what we're up to. Number 2, everyone has a contribution to make which benefits the team. So now you've done the homework to see, how is this person going to fit here? How is this person going to work here and do this? Number 3, God is the source of each gift, so he deserves the glory. Number 4, God chooses who has what gifts, so we must not compete or compare. Number 5, team members are to function like the organs and muscles in a body. No team member is less important than another. All are necessary. Sometimes the players who seem less important are actually more important. God's goal is team harmony and mutual care. Sometimes the players who seem less important are actually more important, so be careful. Number 8, God's goal is team harmony and mutual care. Number 9, although members are equally important, they are meant to be diverse. We should not compete with each other, but complete each other. We should not compete with each other, but complete each other. Join the village, join the community. Woo! Love these team building things. So with that, I'm going to check in with Pastor Catherine, see what she has to say about team building and the principle. Oof.
Definitely. I love it, Coach. That's how we're supposed to do it. We have to train our leaders and make sure that everybody's on the one accord. And like Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. He said, follow me as I follow Christ. That means that this is the way to go. Don't try to create another way. This is the way. I'm showing you the way to go. So follow me as I follow Christ. So I just think that's just so awesome. The way Paul have that set up is where he has a plan. A lot of times in this world, you have to have a plan that people can follow, and it's a good plan, a plan that's gonna give you success, or a plan that's gonna cause your life to be excellent here on this earth. And that's the kind of plan that Paul had. He didn't just throw something together and say, "Y'all, come on, let's do this," and people dying left and right. No, he had a plan that he had put together that was to draw people closer to Christ, not to himself. So that was just powerful. So I pass the mic back over to you.
And I just want to make sure I sent an invite out to Sister Charity, Sister Faith, Sister Karen, and over to Kingdom. If you'd like to come up and share, we'd love to have you up on stage to share. I do also want to take a quick moment and say that in the room chat, I occasionally may put something in the room chat, but I do not use the room chat as a spam vehicle, which is what it seems to be used as lately for houses and for people. There we go. So I just wrote that in the chat. Is there anybody that would like to come up? All right. So now we go into one of my favorite topics with a great preemptive strike from this Corinthians headache building frustration, etc., into now looking at love. The foundation for every act of a leader. First Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. Have you ever pondered why Paul took an entire chapter of the Bible to discuss the supremacy of love? In the early church, leaders modeled love to their churches. In turn, the churches modeled it to the rest of the world. They lived by the watchwords in 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7. They lived by the watchwords in 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7. Love was the foundation and motive for the leaders' actions. They were first love slaves and served the people. While leaders indeed possessed great gifts, their gifts took second place to serving others out of love. Consider how the early leaders lived out this passage. And so, we're going to look at a couple of the leaders, actually 10 of them, and see how they lived out this passage. First, Timothy and Erastus served the church and Paul. 2, Phoebe served the church in So here we go, 10 of them. 10 situations. 1, Timothy and Erastus served the church and Paul. 2, Phoebe served the church in Cenchrea. 3, Aquila and Priscilla risked death to serve Paul and the Gentiles. 4, Stephanas' family devoted themselves to serving Stephanas' family devoted themselves to serving the saints. 5, the apostles served the Corinthian church. 6, Titus served the church in Corinth. 7, Paul ministered to the needs of the saints at Jerusalem. 8, Number 7, Paul ministered to the needs of the saints at Jerusalem. 8, Epaphroditus served Paul in prison. 9, Epaphras served the Colossian church. And 10, Onesiphorus served Paul in Ephesus. So the top 10 foundations for and I'm going to go ahead and prepare for the next one here. Organization. This is always a fun one for me. Woo-hoo! Leaders organize so they don't have to agonize. I can say I've definitely agonized. Paul wrote to bring order to a church in chaos. The Corinthians were abusing their gifts and calling attention to themselves rather than to Christ. As a leader, Paul had to change this. In fact, 1 Corinthians 14:40 urges them to do everything in a fitting and orderly way. What can we learn about organization from this chapter? 1 Corinthians chapter 14 has two titles within it: intelligibility in worship and good order in worship. What can we learn about organization from this chapter? With other tongues and through the lips of foreigners, I will speak to this people, but even then they will not listen to me, says the Lord. So when Paul wrote to bring order to a church in chaos, the Corinthians were abusing their gifts and calling attention to themselves rather than to Christ. As a leader, Paul had to change this. In fact, 1 Corinthians 14:40 urges them to do everything in a fitting and orderly way. What can we learn about organization from this chapter? Six things, excuse me. So leaders organize and they don't have to agonize. 6 things. 1, identify and pursue your top priorities. 2, seek to practice what will benefit the most people. 3, communicate clearly. 4, see things through the eyes of the outsider. 5, order activities simply for the purposes of sitting. So as I said before, see things through the eyes of the outsider, order activities simply for the purpose of adding value to others, and make sure everything is done in an appropriate manner. So that was chapter 14. And now we go to the law of victory. It's funny, the little Bible bubble has the first few chapters and the last 2 sentences of this chapter 15. So this is going to be fun. This is the law of victory in class and closes with hope and victory. List any good video. So leaders organize so they don't have to agonize. And I'm going to share one more thing here about the law of victory. Paul closes with hope and victory. Like any good leader, Paul closes his letter by reminding his friends of the absolute victory of their cause. Paul fuels their convictions to stay the course. So using the past to build future teams to be greater than the future that you were predicted for expands the horizon for which you are able to train and develop not only yourself, but others. And some places, you have to watch for how you are living with victory personally, making sure you show others, regardless of their titles, regardless of anything, anything that they have going on in in our day and age, regardless of their manicures, their bouffants, their clothing, their automobiles, any of that, to be able to look and see by the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace to me was not without effect. No, I worked harder than all of them, and yes, but the grace of God that was with me, whether then it is or they, this is what we preach, and this is what you believe. In the resurrection of the dead will be coming up on Friday. Over to you, Pastor Catherine.
That chapter 14 is just really just I'm just getting one accord out of it. You just have to be on one accord and not allow division to come in, because division will cause you not to see what God sees or hear his word, but you start hearing self. And when you're working as a team, there's nowhere in there where it's self or me or I. You have to get away from that. When you a team have to work together as a team, and it can be done. We've seen it time and time again. When we search the scriptures, the disciples, they worked together, and then when they had issues and they had problems, they came together and they worked it out. You can work out every situation that come your way. It can be worked out. You can come up with a solution. It's nothing in this earth realm that doesn't have a solution. The doctors may say, there's no cure, but see, that's not true. It is a cure. It is a cure, because in Jesus is the cure for everything. Now, whether you be cured or not, now that's a different issue, but it is a cure. So it's an answer for everything. And when you come together as a team to seek it out, when you come together as a team and work things together, you accomplish so much. And then other people can follow what you set up, the method that you used for your business, for your church or for your community. They can use that same setup that you use, which is Paul used the word of God. My goodness. So I pass the mic back over to you, Coach.
And I just want to check in. I see we had Vike pop in. If you'd like to come up on stage and share. And to the others, I have already sent you an invitation. I'm maxed out on invitations, but would love to have you come up if you're able to. So we now just talked about the resurrection. And I love the quote. That if the dead are not raised, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. So with that, we're going to jump into chapter 16, the last chapter in 1 Corinthians. And we're going to look at the collection for the Lord's people, personal requests and final greetings. The law of navigation, the strategy to reach Asia Minor. Paul had a plan to reach the major cities of his day. In a conventional, conversational manner, he describes his plan to start in Macedonia. the law of navigation, the strategy to reach Asia Minor. Paul had a plan to reach the major cities of his day. In a conversational manner, he described his plan to start in Macedonia, then move south to Corinth, and finally visit Asia Minor and the major port city of Ephesus, where a great door for effective work had opened to him. Effective leaders don't drift from one place to another. Paul had a divine plan to impact major cities that would in turn influence those who visited these cities. He focused on the large metropolitan areas, knowing that well-trained followers would bring God's message to the smaller towns and villages in the region. Leaders can do anything, but they can't do everything. Paul did not spend his energies haphazardly, but charted the course to reach the Roman Empire in his lifetime. Kingsley, shh. Pardon me, my dogs are barking in the background. Leaders can do anything, but they can't do everything. Paul did not spend his energies haphazardly, but charted the course to reach the Roman. So what kind of plan do you have? Pastor Catherine, over to you. What kind of plan do you have? Pastor Catherine, are you there?
Sorry about that. Yep, I am here, Coach. So you said, what kind of plan do I have?
Yes, dear.
Oh my goodness. The plan that's going to lead a person or people or children in a direction, where they would have an excellent future, where they would be able to do great and mighty things here in this earth realm. We work with the youth, and so we make sure we find out, what's in the inside of you. What have God called you to do? And then when they share it, then we say, okay, we're going to help you go down that path. I got one little young guy that we're working with now. He